there were a lot of surprises when you started your business. But when you went in full time and you said, this is it, this is what we're doing, what surprised you the most?
I think what surprised me is like it's always harder than you think.
Okay.
You always need more money than you think. You always need bigger team than you think. You always need more knowledge than you think you have about how to solve that problem. The journey is extremely more painful than pleasurable. So the only way you can sustain it is if you're so passionate about the problem that you're wanting to solve that you just wake up with it, you sleep with it, and that is when you should quit what you're doing and start working on it.
All right, Swapnil, thanks so much for joining me.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me.
100%. The founder of Zeni.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. Everybody knows Zeni because we had the VP of sales of Zeni, Megan, on, but now we got the founder.
Our fearless leader was there.
She is a fearless leader. We were talking and she is great. So shout out to Megan, but this is for you. So tell me, I know a little bit, this isn't your first company.
Mm-hmm. This is my third
company.
Yeah.
Tell me about the first two.
So the first one was like Spotify for Indian music. So we built a product that could stream Indian music. And we grew it to almost 10 million unique listeners listening to that startup. It was called Dhingana from almost 100 countries around the world. And it became one of the biggest Indian music streaming services. It was acquired by RDO, which was started by the founders of Skype in 2014. And then they entered India as a result of that acquisition. But yeah, it was a pretty crazy experience.
Holy cow. Okay, how do you start a streaming service like that?
We just started it because both me and my identical twin brother Snehal, we are Bollywood buffs. And when we moved to US from India, we started missing the Bollywood music. And this was early 2004, 2005. Man, it's like 20 years ago.
It's been a while.
This is crazy. And I remember like we used to love Bollywood music so much that in those days you had to have those CDs, etc. to listen to music. And we wanted to basically enjoy music on demand. So we literally hosted a server in our bedroom and we built this product that could stream music and we started listening to it from our office.
So you just built it for yourself?
Just for ourselves.
You're like, that's pretty cool.
And that is how we have, that's the approach that we have taken for every startup. We saw a problem that we could relate to, we have faced and we have lived with for several years and then build a product to just solve our own problem for ourselves. And hopefully if it's good, then it can scale and others can start using it. And that is what happened with Dhingana. It was like we hosted it in our bedroom and before we knew it, 1,000 people were listening to it and we had no idea how they discovered it. And it started growing. At one point, we had 1 million listeners. And that is when we were like, we have to do something about it. Both of us were working at Yahoo that time and we were like, we have to go all in. We have to jump in. And we left our jobs. We raised, it was pretty straightforward for us to raise VC funding that time because we had 1 million users. But to get to that, we had to literally moonlight, do 2 jobs for several years and pretty much sacrifice every evening, every day of our personal life to do that. But that is how it started.
You were just building the infrastructure behind the listening.
Yeah, we were building the entire platform.
To be able to hold 1 million people.
Yeah, and
more.
Thankfully, I think one of the key reasons why we went to Yahoo is because we knew that working at Yahoo, we will know how to build these consumer platforms that can scale. And even the worst web page at Yahoo used to get traffic in millions. So that is where we learned how to build platforms that can scale to more than 100 million consumers. And I was focused on building the platforms and Snehal was focused on the front end. He was the product manager for Yahoo News, Yahoo Mail, Yahoo Search, a lot of Yahoo properties. And I was working in the web performance optimization team where we actually did research and publish rules of how do you build web pages that can render in less than 1 second. So speed was everything. And I think it was an amazing experience to equip ourselves with so that we can build better startups.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, so you go from Yahoo to your own. And then what was the second one? So you sell your streaming service?
Yeah, we sold it. We were there with the RDO team for almost 1.5 years. After that, I actually ended up being the VP for product across all international markets. So launched RDO in 30, 35 countries around the world, had an amazing relationship with their president, CEO, CPO. We bonded really well. All of them ended up angel investing in my second startup, Mezi, which was like, we went from Bollywood music to travel.
Okay.
And that is the idea there was to build an AI-powered travel assistant that can sit in your pocket, accessible to you 24/7, who makes you feel like a celebrity because you just take out your phone, tell them that, hey, I want to travel to New York. Can you plan my flight? Can you plan my hotel? Can you figure out where I'm going to have dinner, lunch, and what I should see? And it will do everything for you. Book everything and just get it done. You don't have to worry about it. That was the whole vision. And we knew if we wanted to scale this, it has to be built using AI. So that is when we actually built our first AI-powered human-assisted platform to do travel.
Holy shit.
And this was 2015.
Oh, you're freaking me out. That's crazy. Okay, so 2015. So you were early in AI.
Yeah,
I mean, that was fairly early, right? 2015.
We freak ourselves out all the time.
That's awesome. Okay. But that was early in AI when AI probably wasn't
It was
as robust
Yeah.
as it was now, huh?
There was ChatGPT, all these things didn't exist. You really had to spend time, energy, and knowledge to actually build something that can be called as AI. And even then, like, I remember at that point when we launched, it became an year of assistants. Like every startup was building some kind of assistant. And at some point, we felt like we had 70 competitors in the space.
Wow.
In the next year and a half, probably only 5 left. And then we were probably the only AI-powered chatbot who was able to get acquired at an amazing outcome in almost 2 years' time. And everyone else died.
Yeah.
Because they didn't focus on building an AI-first company. They didn't focus on building something that can be scaled with technology. They started throwing people at the problem. They raised millions of dollars more than we ever did. I remember our closest competitor raised 20 million when we had raised 2 million from some of the best VCs, but none of that mattered. I think what matters is what are the roots of your company, why did you start it, and how you're going to solve that problem.
Wow. I really like what you said there. They were throwing people at the problem. You guys were building a better product.
Yeah.
Yeah. I interviewed a really famous author. His name's Jack Carr, who said that very similar. So every time I talk with founders or like business owners, there's a lot of similarities, but there's always one when I talk to really successful people, and that's like the product is amazing, right? Like it's perfect. They make that better and better because I learned from another really good marketer that behind every great marketing campaign and sales team is an even better product.
Yep.
Because
And
it's really
behind every product is an amazing team.
Yes.
So I think it all starts with the team and ends with the team at the end of it.
Yeah. Because and how did you go about, like, what was your process for selecting teammates?
I think we have been pretty fortunate because all the key people in our first startup ended up joining the second startup. Anyone who joined the second startup for the first time are with us in our third startup. So I think if you look at the space today, the space in which Zeni is, we are probably the only company where we have a team that has built AI-powered human-assisted platforms before and have scaled it to millions of users and have successfully sold that startup. So I feel lucky and fortunate to have a team who has done it before. That's why our approach at Zeni is very different than anyone else who is doing what we are doing.
Mm-hmm. And Zeni, so explain Zeni. You said AI. It's another AI-powered.
Yeah, it's another play. So after Mezi was acquired by American Express in 2018, we spent a year and a half at MX. And again, we were thinking about what problems we have faced. And one problem that we had a very deep, meaningful, painful relationship with was the fact that managing books, accounting, bookkeeping for your startup, and we had done it for 10 years by that time, was extremely painful. Every time we used to work with an accountant bookkeeper, they will wake up at the end of the month, start working on your books, throw Excel sheets at you. All Excel sheets are on email. They are going back and forth. There are no real-time insights that you get. You have to ask them a question to get an answer. Every time they answer, it's in a cryptic language that most founders don't understand. Every answer has look at the P&L kind of every question has look at the P&L kind of an answer. So, and overall, we saw that it was so fragmented. You need an accountant to work on your books. You need a tax person to work on your taxes. You need someone else to work on your CFO needs. So you need too many humans, and all those humans use too many tools. So you end up in a complete mess, and they make it all manual. So the more you scale, the more manual it becomes. The more manual it becomes, the more hours they spend. The more hours they spend, the more you pay for it. And at the end of it, I don't even know where I stand as a company in terms of my finances, because accounting will start after the month ends. Then they will take 3 weeks, and then I will come to know how the last month was.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was extremely painful. And we thought that the only way we can solve this problem is if today morning I wake up and I want to know where I stand, I can go look at a dashboard and see where I stand. And the only way to solve that was if accountants and bookkeepers touch my books daily. So Zeni came up with this very unique notion that we are going to work on your books daily. And then we are going to offer you a dashboard through which you can look at real-time insights into your finances. So you don't really need to wait till the month is closed to figure out where you stand. You can look at your burn rate. You can look at your operating expenses. You can figure out how much you're spending on certain vendors. We even show you your P&Ls and balance sheets in real time as transactions are happening. So I think we have almost looked at a pretty foolish way to disrupt this problem, but we could do it because we were not accountants, right? We were product guys. So we didn't care about the loopholes. We didn't care about the potholes. We just went with our own problem and a solution that we would love to use. So that is how it started.
I love that. And when I was when I took my accounting degree and we were in finance, a big piece of it was how are accountants and financiers and these guys gonna compete with AI and things like that. And now it's like, okay, you're more of a consultant now as an accountant versus like actually a pusher, because now you got Zeni. I mean, if you're, you can go anywhere and get a rudimentary version of Zeni if you had to. But I like what you said, because you were like, it's not, we weren't accountants. We just solved the problem like we would want it to be solved.
Yeah.
And there's so much power in that.
Yeah, I think
much power in
not knowing everything is actually very powerful.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because you can be foolish enough to do things or take a path that no one else will take because they know what are the problems you will face. And if you just take the beaten path, you will know what problems you will face, but you will basically just be on a path where everyone is. And that's not where innovation happens. I think innovation happens on the other side of fear.
Yeah, that's very true. I really like, because that's how I've been successful in a few of the sales companies that I've been in, is like bringing knowledge from other industries.
Yeah.
It's like, because you get some old dogs who just, this is the way it's always been. And accountants are especially bad at that. Yeah. Like, no, we can't do that. It'll never work, or blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, but I think it will though. And and when you can unlock that for everybody, like accounting for everybody, you're done.
And that's why I think I'm so proud of all the accountants and CPAs and CFOs who work at Zeni, because they are the ones who have the forward-looking futuristic mindset that what we have been doing for years, or the way the finance industry has been operating for decades, needs to change, needs to be disrupted. And when you believe in that, you can actually work closely with the product team to create an experience that is 10x faster than anyone has seen today. Mm-hmm. So I think that is what we offer. Like Zeni will literally turbocharge the way your finance department is run in a way that has not been done before. And for a lot of people, that is an aha moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's an aha moment, and it's like a let's go moment, because you do spend a lot of time on finance. I mean, I'm a small business owner. We're in the startup phase, and I'm looking at, and I know what I'm doing, and it takes me too much time. You know what I mean? I know what I'm doing, and I'm like, oh, come on, this sucks, right? And so if you don't know what you're doing, my favorite joke to clap back at people, when people say like what you should learn in school, and one of them is like, what they should teach you in high school, and there's like all these things, but taxes is one of them.
Yeah.
Like, man, I sat through a tax class, and I couldn't imagine how bad I would have tried to skip that class if I was in high school.
Oh,
it's so boring.
Taxes is painful, and it's painful whether it's your personal taxes or business taxes. It's equally painful.
Yeah.
And by the time you're done with it, the next year is already here.
Yeah.
So you have the same tax CP asking you the same questions for the next year.
Yeah, and you're like, dude, why can't you?
Why can't you just use the answers that I gave you last year?
Yeah, but and
I'm telling you, there will be soon a button in Zeni. You click it, and the taxes will be done for you. It's insane. Like, so much time and energy is wasted in this stuff.
Because you can kind of,
I think as AI advances, we can look at the nuances of what a business is doing and how they are doing it, and what are the things that we should be looking at so that we can understand their finances better and use that knowledge to file their taxes. And that is another problem. Like you will typically have one person who is doing your accounting, another person or another company doing your taxes, and there itself you have fragmented your finances, right?
Well, yeah, and there's two different books too.
Yeah.
I mean, when you get up into like, I mean, Amex, they probably have a few different sets of accounting books.
Oh yeah.
They probably got their internal one.
Amex had 50 people just doing employee reimbursements. It gets uglier the bigger you become.
Dude, well, no, I see how, I mean, I'm an accountant and the tax code changes every year, but it's sometimes there are material changes in the tax code that we really got to like dig into and look. You know, ERC might be one of them that you really got to understand. But for the most part, the tax code is the tax code. Like sometimes I chat GPT, like, hey, remind me where I find this in the tax code. Chat GPT pulls it up and I'm like, perfect. Because most of them are like the same.
Yeah, I agree. I think if I'm not wrong, one of the early use cases of ChatGPT was to actually figure out taxes. Like that was one of the...
sense. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, because you plug it into the tax code. I mean, it's long, but if you have an AI that you got machine learning in there, I don't see why you couldn't just be like, hey, you know, once you get it to a point where you're just like new code, go to the IRC, plug it in, and how that affects, right? And it can start doing its thing, how that affects other pieces of the code. And because that's where it gets messy is like, if I try to take it here, then I've got a balance here. And sometimes that can get pretty messy, but that'd be really cool if you could just do or at least if you could just have like a predictive tax. Yeah. Like here's what we predict, like based on certain things, like go, you know, ask a CPA, but this is what it looks like right now.
Yeah. And I think the trick in what Zeni is doing is not about just using AI to figure out or do something, right? It's also the whole synergy and the combination of humans and AI that work together to make sure your books are perfect. Mm-hmm. So if we use AI to file your taxes, it will do it till 70-80% and then the human will step in. And when he steps in and does stuff, the AI should learn from it. And I think that ball game where the humans and machines are collaborating with each other in a way that the human is empowered to do 5x more than you would have without that AI is the secret sauce. And that is what we have done successfully at Mezi and we are replicating it at Zeni. And I think that is what will allow any business to scale. And for us to scale Zeni and for us to scale our customers' finances as they scale their own companies.
Yeah. Yeah, it does get really messy the more stuff you do. Yeah. Like I'm dealing with one Google sheet and I have like 4 people working for me. So it's going to get messy.
Yeah, that's why I feel like any startup who is trying to build a wrapper on top of ChatGPT and saying that, they are an AI startup now will work at an early stage. It will be a novelty. People will get excited. But I think the painful problems will start evolving when you start growing and you will feel that you can't do something unless you build real technology. And that's why people who are technologists have a better success ratio when you build hardcore AI startups.
Yeah. I think, it's true because, I even look at ChatGPT, like if I'm trying to solve a problem, and this is where like I use AI as like prompts or as like a base, like you said, like it gets me 80% of the way and then the 20% is where I can shine, right? Because I've seen some like on top, like built on top of ChatGPT and I'm like, this isn't it. You know what I mean? Like this isn't, but if you can have some real like baked in, what's that do you go to school to learn AI now or what? Like, how do you figure that out?
I think now if you go to school, you can probably learn AI. And if not, then probably you're in the wrong school. But I think when we started, it's very important to to have your foundation very strong when it comes to technology, right? So both me and my brother, we did a bachelor's in computer science, then we did our master's in computer science. This was all hardcore technical stuff. We learned computer networks, we learned distributed systems, and then we worked at companies like Semantic Norton and Antivirus and Yahoo, where we could use that technology to really build knowledge and know-how on how to build platforms that can scale to hundreds of millions of customers. So I think a lot of real-world experience, a lot of academics that you have learned, that mindset and that ability to apply these things to identifying the problem and then applying it to scale. I think all those things are very important. It's like there are so many pieces in this puzzle that even if one is missing, you're screwed.
I think the piece that is missing a lot with a lot of founders is something that, one of the reasons that I was successful in this new venture, and one of the reasons that I feel like, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like you were saying in this was you had that real world experience at like bigger companies. So like my sales experience, I was at Honda, I was at a few other big tech companies where they had real sales teams and we were like sales floor, traditional selling.
Yeah.
And then you were at, Norton would be crazy to be a tech person at.
Yeah.
With security, like
it was pretty crazy.
that would be insane.
So hardcore.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that early on in your career, you need to make calculated moves, right? We were in Los Angeles. We were at USC. We did our masters in CS over there. And LA was such an amazing, impressive town to live in. And everything there is impressive. People dress in an impressive way. They party in an impressive way. It's Hollywood. It's right there. But we knew that we wanted to move to the Bay Area because we wanted to start a company. Yeah. And we worked at Yahoo because it was part of a calculated move. Yahoo was a big, hot internet company that time, and we knew that if we work there, we will get to
experience all of that.
Experience and work with some of the smartest minds in the business. Like the person who was sitting next to me was Douglas Crawford, who invented JavaScript. He was the founder of JavaScript. I had another person who was one of the founders of PHP language. So you get to be surrounded by these amazing brains, and then you can amplify your skills. You can amplify what you can create. And that's how you create magic at the end of the day.
Wow, that's crazy. So, yes, I read a study one time, and this is why for a lot, I started this podcast when I wasn't a business owner. I always try like you, but I was looking at, I felt like we're similar, but I read that study that was like founders who come out of like a career like that usually are like 100 times more successful than the college dropout or the high school dropout or whatever. And you have those people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think what's really interesting about this perspective is like there is value in proximity to high value companies, right? Like, and those kind of people that you get to rub shoulders with.
It can definitely add fuel to your fire.
Yeah.
And I think dropping out also, it depends why you're dropping out. If you're just dropping out because you want to drop out, you are screwed. But if you're dropping out because you really have this amazing idea that you will be wasting time in school, you would rather work on this idea, then you become a Mark Zuckerberg, right? So everything, the reason at the end of the day matters.
Yeah. That's really interesting because I've seen that pattern in a lot of high performing and multiple ex-founders, right? Like they were, I haven't really met a founder that was a founder on day one. They were at this company and then they grew to this company and they grew to this company and then they were like, we got it. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
That was kind of my experience. We did an outsourced SDR company and that was my experience. It was like, all right, I learned how a really high powered SDR team runs. Like get to be around people like Megan, get to around people like this. And I was like, all right, what tools do they use?
Yeah.
How do they think? How do they train their team? All right, go on to the next company. How do they do that? And now we created this 2 weeks. We had $20,000 of MRR secured. Yeah. We had all of our tools. We didn't have to do anything. It was like, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, how was that? That's so crazy. And I was like, well, it was like 10 years in high powered sales. We're just doing that for ourselves. Yeah. But we would have never known that had we not done anything.
Yeah, that's why I feel like people say that there is no shortcut to success, but there are shortcuts that you can take to walk on that painful path to success, right?
Yeah.
Working at a big company and figuring out the tricks is a shortcut.
Yeah.
You can either do it yourself and go through that pain and then figure out how to do it, or quickly go somewhere and learn it and then start your journey from there. And that's why I would say second-time founders are more powerful than the first-time founders, because the first-time founder goes through all these pains. He's so much wounded that when he becomes a second-time founder, he knows what to avoid so that you don't get those wounds and you can run faster. And third-time founder is even better because you can avoid even the
you guys
wounds.
are going.
Yeah. So it's all the knowledge that you acquire that can help you run faster is very critical.
Well, I just love that story. So tell me, you mentioned a little earlier that you'd always kind of wanted to be, you and your brother wanted to start a business. Did that come about because of where you were? Did that start when you were a child? How did that come about?
I think a lot of that was related to our upbringing because dad never worked for anyone. He had his own business. Mom was extremely entrepreneurial as well. We saw she started many startups with her brother and several of them failed, and they used to make fun of their failure and use that as encouragement to start their next initiative or project or startup, whatever you call it in those days. But I think that keeps playing on you, and that keeps morphing your personalities and your mindset at an early stage. Yeah. And I remember when we wanted to quit Yahoo, mom called and said that, why are you quitting it? I know how painful it is to start a business by yourself. So you shouldn't do it, because it's only going to give you pain. You have such a high paying job. And then we said that, no, we have to do it. This is what we want to do. So mom was like, at least one of you stay at Yahoo and other one start the company. So I remember her best friend called. So she asked her best friend to call us and then see if she could convince us. And why do you, both of you want to jump down at the same time? And it was like, because that's the only way to do it properly.
Yeah.
So I think you need to have that. Again, I've used this word a few times, but foolish enough to pursue your dreams is such an important quality, because it makes you foolishly fearless in so many ways that you don't really care about all these practicalities, and you jump in, and then hopefully something happens. And I think universe will align things in front of you to make it happen for you.
Well, another thread you're hitting on there, I've heard that so many times, which is like kind of like this blindness. Like, you're almost grateful that you didn't know how hard it was.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that you didn't know what you were going to hit, because for somebody who didn't know that was coming, you're like, it's just another, whatever. Yeah. Like, it's just, I knew it was going to be hard, and this just must be part of it. And versus somebody who's like, nah, dude, that's going to be, not listening to all the people who were kind of talking.
Yeah. Not knowing how hard it is probably even more blissful, because if I look back on my entrepreneurial journey for my first startup, it's hilariously painful. I wouldn't do it again. But you keep doing it because you don't know what is coming in front of you, and you're so focused on your passion, you're so focused on your outcome that you keep moving. And every little win adds encouragement to your journey, right? Mm-hmm. And every time you fail, you look at those wins, and hopefully you move forward as a result of that.
Getting better and better every time, yeah.
So not knowing the future is probably a good thing.
Okay, I love that. So coming from a technology background, what surprised you the most? There were a lot of surprises when you started your business, but when you went in full time and you said, "This is it. This is what we're doing." What surprised you the most? What do you look back on and you're like, man, that was number one. That was crazy.
In all three startups, I think what surprised me is like, it's always harder than you think.
Okay.
You always need more money than you think. You always need bigger team than you think. You always need more knowledge than you think you have about how to solve that problem. So at the end of it, the journey is extremely more painful than pleasurable. So the only way you can sustain it is if you're so passionate about the problem that you're wanting to solve that you just wake up with it, you sleep with it, and that is when you should quit what you're doing and start working on it. Because the journey is going to be so painful. Because if you just, and several times I have some friends or some first-time founders who say that, oh, we want to start a startup. We are going to meet this weekend and brainstorm what we should work on. And I was like, that's such an amazing red flag. Because first of all, it's clear that you have no painful relationship with the problem.
Yeah.
So how will you even know what the solution is? And if you're just going to sit under a tree and figure out what amazing idea you can work on, it's very clear to me that probably 3 months down the line, you'll be out of fuel. Because the first time you hit those problems and the first time you fall flat on your face, you will think of another problem. Yeah. Just because your relationship is not deep enough with this problem. Yeah. So you really have to be very careful about what you're trying to solve, and you have to have a very, very deep, painful relationship with it.
That's true. Yeah, the deep, painful relationship for us was, for me starting that outsource, was how many people get laid off in sales all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, we got to stop this. Yeah. And we got to stop. For me, it was, I've got to stop watching all my friends get laid off. And it sounds a little counterintuitive to then start an outsourced company. But if a company can use me and it works, right? Then they can hire SDRs and know that it works.
Yeah. In fact, you have your winning script right there.
Yeah.
People should work with you so that they don't end up hiring and laying off people.
Yeah.
Instead of laying off people and hiring people, they should just work with you. Once they have the secret formula, then start hiring people, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of problems that arise in the workforce is because you exactly don't know how you're going to solve this. And then you start building teams around it in the hope that that team will solve it. But
right,
if you
start
don't have the
people
winning
as the
script,
problem. Yeah.
if you don't have the winning script, there is no way that you cannot blame them for not having it. Right? So,
which is essentially in my mind. Now I know there's a lot of reasons to lay people off, and I know that you can't. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but I don't know, man. One of the things I like about Zeni is that's a winning script for Zeni is like when you just throw a bookkeeper or financier at a sales problem, they're like, oh, well, one salesperson equals this amount of output.
yeah,
And you're like, not in real time though.
yeah,
Which is nice to have Zeni be like in real time, it's just crazy. That's always a painful thing for me.
Yeah.
But if I can stop one or two layoffs because a company can validate the need for an SDR,
yeah.
then I'll be done. I'll be fine.
I think you can stop a few layoffs, and there is another angle to your play. You can actually work with companies at an earlier stage who can't even afford to have an SDR, a full-time SDR, not even one or two, right? Having one will not work. You should always say that if you want to build a sales team, don't hire one AE, hire two, because you need two people to compete with each other, and you should know what is good and what is not. If you have one, you have no idea.
Yeah.
How can you benchmark?
Yeah.
So similarly with SDR, you should have at least two. And if you want two, that's like you're talking about more than $500,000 in just payroll.
Right.
So might as well work with you and figure out how to get the
message right and because that's one thing that we do too is we help with that. But yes, I'm so glad that you said that, because a lot of people I talk to, this is crazy. You add this to your Zeni script, because it blows my mind how many business owners, when I pitch that, like, because I'm less than half, because I worked in big companies, I know how much an AE costs. Just payroll for one AE, if they're good, is $200K.
Yeah.
If you're hitting everything, you're $200,000, and that doesn't include all of the benefits that you're going to pay them, onboarding them, their MacBook, anyway. But you'll be surprised how many people don't, like, I'll tell that and they're like, no way, my buddy will do it for whatever. And I'm like, nope. Like, it's just crazy how much they don't know how much things cost.
Yeah. So I think that's why hitting at an early stage can be pretty interesting for you. I, in fact, will probably refer you a couple of them. Hopefully they convert into customers. Let's do it.
And we'll use Zeni. So coming from my finance background, I think the hardest conversations that I have with startups is around money. Nobody understands like how much things cost. I like how you said you're going to need more money than you think.
Yeah, always. People always say that, oh, we have raised this next round and it's for 18 months or it's for 24 months and it's out in 12 months. Because you will always spend more than you need. First of all, when you raise money, you end up getting these like amazing skills of knowing how to spend it. So the more you raise, the more you spend. It's not more progress that you're making, and you will have this aggressive growth goals where the only number you want to move up is revenues and nothing else. And then you start making pretty wrong decisions as a result of that.
That's true. I've been in companies like that too.
Yeah.
Where you're like, dang, when do you raise money?
Oh, that's a great question. I think you should fundamentally raise money because you want to build a team. And because without a team, you cannot really build a product. And you should raise enough money so that you can build a team that can build a minimum viable product or a minimum lovable product that hopefully customers will pay for. And if that journey is going to take you 18 months, 12 months, then accordingly add some buffer on top of it, at least a buffer of 4 to 6 months, and then raise that much. But raising more than you need is always a tricky ball game because you will spend more than you need. There is also a flip side. Whether you raise 5 million or 2 million or 3 million, you will end up giving the same equity stake in the company to that investor. So that is one thing that plays on a founder's mind, that anyways I'm going to lose 20% of the equity. I would rather raise 3 million than 2 million, right? So that is another thing that plays. And because of that, because you're raising a bit more, your valuation increases a bit more. So suddenly you feel that my company is now valued 20 million instead of 15 million.
Yeah.
I think the trick side to that is whether your company is valued 15, 20 or 40, the more it is valued in an earlier stage puts more weight on you to actually grow into that particular valuation so that you are actually worth 40 million before your next round, and you should ideally be worth 80 million so that the next round can be multiple times higher than your previous round.
Yeah.
And that is where 80% of the founders fail and screw themselves. And that is what has happened in the last 2 years. You see companies with no revenues raising at $100 million valuations.
Yes.
And now, because they don't have any revenues, their valuations are not really 100. They are probably 25. So they cannot raise another round at 100. So they have to raise at 25, which means all employees are screwed.
Round,
everyone is underwater. The morale is really bad, and everyone is losing in that case. So I think it's good to be aggressive. I always feel that you should raise a bit above market, but then you should know that you and your team has the capability to grow into that valuation so that you are ready for the next multiple.
Yeah, I've seen that too over the last 2 years. And here's the problem with on the sales side, right? What I saw was they were raising money and they raised a bunch of money. They were like, oh, we'll take all the money you'll give me. And so they go out and hire the sales team. And now you have salespeople who grew into AE2s or whatever, and they've only got 2 years in tech sales, which isn't a ton of experience. You'll probably get a good AE1 or 2 gig, right? But now you have 500 of these guys who have 1 or 2 years as an AE, and they were making stupid money that they probably shouldn't have been making because the company raised more money than they thought they should. And now you have 500 AEs who can't get jobs because there shouldn't have been that many in the begin with, and they shouldn't have been paid that much to begin with. Yeah. Like not that salespeople don't deserve to get paid, but do you see the problem when you have 500 AEs? Totally. Like because the company couldn't. Yeah. Because the company couldn't. They just got, or whatever happened. I don't know, got greedy, weren't smart enough, didn't know, got bad info, whatever.
It's a vicious cycle because you have raised more. You have to now hit bigger revenue targets. Yeah. For that you need a bigger team. And for that, you have to compete for resources. So you end up paying more to those same people that you would have paid less. And now they are coming in, because they are paid more, their targets are higher. Yeah. So they cannot meet their targets. So everything is like a deck of cards. Everything is like just collapsing.
Yeah. Which is bananas.
Hard to build a sustainable company on top of that foundation.
Yeah. And I mean, we don't need to say any names, but I got a few that came, because I would go into these companies and it just baffles me. So that's really good advice though, because I used to think that people didn't need to raise money as much as they did, but whether you're raising, let me ask you this. Do the same rules apply if you're raising 3 million, 50 million, if you're going to an angel investor and asking your buddy for 10 grand or whatever?
Yeah, I think angel investment is a very different, I would say, case, because they are not investing, they are investing at such an early stage that you really can't even value your company. So you will typically end up raising that money on a safe note. And so there you can easily, whether you're raising 10, 25, 50, 100, doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah. Okay.
But even there, I would say, like, if you want to raise 100, raise 300 because you will need that money, especially at an early stage. You will realize that probably I should hire 2 more engineers and your 300K will be gone even with 1.5 engineers.
But yes, people, well, and that's what I meant. Like, it is different, but I feel like the same principles would apply there. Like, raise more money than you think, get a good team. Yeah. Like, you just said something in my mind, and I'm looking at Enrique going like, bro, we should hire 1 more SDR so that we can have like a floater or something like that. Oh, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, have 1 more person to back us up.
It's also important to understand, how do you build the velocity in your team? Do you hire ahead of growth? Do you hire behind growth? If you hire ahead of growth, you will need bench strength. You will burn more. And what if the growth doesn't come? Which is how a lot of companies also got screwed, by the way. Mm-hmm. So in this market, if you really want to build a company that is sustainable, hire behind growth. It's okay if people are overloaded instead of 100% overloaded, 120, 150%, but they will feel that you are building up a stronger company and their jobs are safer and your future is safer as a team. So I think hiring behind growth in this market, at least this year, is a wiser play.
Okay, so kind of putting everybody knowing on the team that they're going to take a little bit more of a load, a workload, and then just understanding that as we grow, once we get out of this, whatever we're in right now,
feel the pain before you add to the growth. Feel the pain in your human operations. If you are not feeling the pain and if you're growing the team, you're screwed.
Nice. Yeah, Enrique's taking notes, dude. This thing's full. Good for
Enrique is taking notes. Yes.
We got this recorded, Enrique. Come on, we're gonna get it transcribed. But no, that's really good advice. Something that what I love talking to people for. I love these podcasts.
Yeah, I can imagine how much you might be learning and sharing through these conversations, right? It's like amazing.
Yeah, and I tell everybody that they should.
This is another shortcut to the painful part to success.
Actually, it is. We get one
advice
day
in like 60 minutes, and you're boom.
Yeah,
you can avoid at least 5 mistakes from each part.
That's right, and we do, and because you get to explore it, right? Like I'm thinking, like you just said, like you said, we'd need a team, so I'm like, maybe we should, and then you're like, no, feel the pain for a little bit, like make sure you get it. Now I'm like, all right, well then we'll just do it because it's gonna suck either way.
Yeah.
So you might as well figure out it on your own, and then you got a good playbook for when people come in and get it done. But I think that's part of being an entrepreneur, starting a business, is like understanding that it's gonna suck a little bit.
Yep.
A lot. And the West culture has done a really good job at trying to get people to not suffer.
Yeah.
When that's part of the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like humans should always be super kind to founders and people who are trying to build their businesses, because they are literally putting their blood, sweat and tears into building what they're doing, and it's extremely hard to do. And they are doing this in spite of all the other problems that all other humans also face, like whether it's your family problems, some sickness, whatever it is, we have to face that. Plus we have to do this. So if you actually achieve success at the end of it, whatever it is, I think that success still falls short of what you have let go.
Yeah.
So I feel one of the most important skills a founder can have is his ability to sacrifice.
Yeah, which is something that, I'm a big fan of a lot of Eastern philosophies, and that's something that some Western philosophies have like really shot away from. Like, you should try to be happy all the time. You should try to do these things. And I'm like, no, but it's okay. Like, this stuff is, I don't know.
Being happy all the time is such a wrong way to live. I think even in the amazing movie that Disney made, In and Out.
Oh, yeah.
There was happiness, but there was sadness. Right? There were all those emotions. I think all those emotions together build a better human.
Well, and Disney got to chill out with these movies, man, because I need to go to therapy. They were trying to do, you know what I'm saying? But I need to go to more therapy now, because you're right. Yeah. Like all of them. And I thought In and Out did a really good job of the symbolism of they were all in the same place, right? Like, which I thought was very telling. And like a lot of people don't understand is like everything is here. And
but you have to taste sadness to actually figure out what makes you happy.
Yeah.
You will really value happiness after that. Similarly, once you fail, you really understand how important success is, and you will just go 500% behind that. So I think all those lessons are very important.
Yeah. What do you think in your journey was the biggest lesson? What's the lesson that if you had to write a book on one topic, you only could pick one, what would you write a book on?
The good, the bad, the ugly of entrepreneurship. It cannot be one topic, I would say. I mean, the topic can be entrepreneurship, but I think one of the most important lessons I have learned building 3 startups is that you should really focus on building your team top down and bottoms up at the same time. Wow. And in our first startup, we build the team bottoms up. That means that you as a founder need to wear several different hats, which means you're always running thin on time. You don't have expertise to do anything super good in a deep way. Versus if you build the team top down and bottoms up, so hire your VP earlier and hire your must-have people at the ground level earlier, and then let that particular VP build the team around them instead of you actually building the team and then hiring the leader. So the top-down, bottoms-up approach can actually bulletproof your execution. And at the end of the day, your idea doesn't matter. Everyone has amazing ideas. How much you have raised doesn't matter. Whom you have raised never matters. It doesn't matter which brand name it is.
Yeah.
What really matters is how good you are at execution. And execution comes with really nailing down how you operate with people, how you amplify their skills, and how they create magic beyond the founders. And I think that is the end game.
That's super interesting. I have heard that from a couple of high level people like yourself as well, who said, don't hire the salespeople first, like hire the VP first.
Oh yeah, so I'm actually, me and Megan are speaking at Sester, which is one of the biggest
Yes.
SaaS conferences.
Yeah.
And the title of our talk is when and how to hire a VP of sales. And
Yes.
and it's interesting, like I have advised so many startups on this, and most founders feel that if they want to increase their revenues, they want to quickly hire the VP of sales.
Mm-hmm.
And the more revenue you need, the more A's you need. The first sales leader that you should hire is not the VP of sales, it's you. You need to be the VP of sales. You need to close those deals. I closed the first 100 deals for Zeni over the first 1.5 years. And at the end of it, I knew
That's right.
exactly what the customers wanted, what their pain points were, when they had an aha moment,
Mm-hmm.
what is a winning script, what is resonating with them, how long does it take to close each deal cycle. And then I created that blueprint, and then you don't hire a VP of sales after that. You first hire a couple of A's, transfer that winning script to them and make sure that it's working for them as well. If not, you tweak it. Because if you are converting customers from demos to deal one at a certain conversion rate, ideally the same should apply to them.
Mm-hmm.
If it does, you know that your script is winning.
Mm-hmm.
And now when you have those two A's selling for you, in parallel, hire a VP of sales if you want to scale your sales org.
Mm-hmm.
The VP of sales comes in, he or she focuses on how to scale this particular sales team. What are our revenue targets? What kind of team do I need? Whom should I hire? How many BDRs I need? Who will manage those BDRs? How many A's I need? And while she's doing all this, we have two A's selling in parallel. So your growth is not getting affected.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this whole formula and blueprint is something that most founders are not aware about, especially if they are
Yes,
technology
yeah.
founders.
Yeah. And they're not, because I don't advise companies, but I talk with people, and I'm like, I talk with business owners, like small business owners in the early startup stage. And they're like, maybe I should hire a salesperson. And I'm like, okay, well, how many sales have you made personally?
Yeah. And
And
how
if-
do you know?
Yeah,
who to
exactly.
hire and if they're good or not?
Yeah.
Right?
I go,
It's
well, and
like-
that's what I say. Yeah, that's what I tell them. I'm like, listen, if the answer is less than any number than 100, like if you haven't closed a good handful of deals and you haven't kicked this off, you shouldn't hire anybody. Because I'll tell people too, because what was really unique about what you just said was like, you wrote all the blueprints down and then you gave it to them.
Yep.
Like if you don't have a process to give somebody, if you don't have the knowledge and the experience from selling your product,
Yeah.
you're not gonna, like, I can't do it for you, Swapnil can't do it
Yeah.
for you. Like you've got to sell it.
Yep. And you know that you can actually judge them, like if they can't sell it and you can, then they are the problem.
Yeah. Yes.
And if you haven't sold it yourself, you
don't
will
know
feel
that.
you are the problem. Yeah. Your product is the problem.
Actually, and this is what I learned. So actually, when I'm with my outbound SDR company, I sell those deals, and I ask founders when we're in that conversation, I'm like, how many deals have you sold? And if the answer's too low for me, and there's no number, I don't put a number on it, but if I get the heebie-jeebies or something, like I don't feel good about it, like we don't do it, because for that exact reason. I tell people that, like, look, if you haven't sold it and I can't sell it, how do we, like, now we're in this fight,
Yeah.
right? But if you've sold it and you've had a lot of success and you've got all these testimonials, then I should be able to come in and take what you've done and just take that off your plate.
Yeah.
And we should be able to cruise and run, right? But if you haven't sold, or if you haven't done these things and you don't have a script and you don't have any of that, then you don't need a salesperson.
Yeah.
You need a consultant, or you need to just hit the ground. You know what I mean?
You need someone who can advise you how to do it yourself.
That's right. You need a coach, man. You need a coach. Wow. This is a great conversation, Swapnil. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much.
I'm really grateful. Before I let you go, because these are always, I think we're close to it. But before I let you go, though, where can everybody follow you? You're getting on LinkedIn.
Oh yeah, I'm on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I see you posting good
Yep,
stuff.
yep.
Go follow. So let everybody know where they can follow you, and then how they can get a hold of Zeni.
Yeah,
all that good stuff.
Zeni.ai. So just go
Okay.
to Zeni.ai and schedule a demo, and hopefully we can help you with your finances.
Yeah, perfect. And then follow Swapnil. That'll be in there. Last question, because I'm a watch connoisseur. Where'd you
Oh.
get your watch from?
Oh, this
How'd
is
you
this is a Rolex.
Yeah, is it a Datejust?
It's a Yacht-Master.
Yes.
Yeah,
Let's go.
It's pretty amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, I bought this because it reminds me of the Messi success when Messi was acquired by Amex.
Uh-huh.
after that, I bought this so that it always reminds me of that amazing journey that we had.
Yep, which is why you buy Rolex.
Yeah, and the way it impacted everyone's lives.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, and a good watch too, by the way. All right, thank you so much, Swapnil.
Thank you so much, Anton, and all the best for your startup.
Yeah, thank you, sir.